Well, $10 to whoever can guess what tonight's presentation is about.
Dstar.
Since we got this brand new fancy repeater, and it's all up and fully commissioned and fully operational, it's time for a little training because one of Charlie's favorite, it ain't plug and play. So you probably have what you need to operate it, but it ain't plug and play. First off, what is Dstar? Well, Dstar stands for Digital Smart Technology for Amateur Radio, DSTAR. It was developed in Japan by the Japanese Amateur Radio League. They're our counterpart to the ARRL, okay? And its purpose was to provide an open protocol that's designed specifically for amateur radio that also gives you integrated voice and data. So obviously, if it's data, it's a digital mode. So here are some of the things you can do with Dstar. Here's your basic stuff. You can make a simplex call, radio to radio. No repeater. We could have been doing this last year, for years ago, actually, even without the repeater. So you can make a radio to radio call using Dstar. What we have now, we have a repeater. So now we can make a local area call. Our repeater will repeat Dstar transmissions, transmit and receive, relay Dstar transmissions. Some other things you can do with Dstar, and not necessarily related to our repeater, is you can connect our repeater to another repeater. It can be connected to another repeater. That other repeater may be Charleston, South Carolina, Charleston, West Virginia. It might be Charlestown, New South Wales, Australia, wherever. It can be anywhere, but our repeater has the ability, based on your commands, by commands that you guys issue on your radios, it will steer and tell that repeater to connect. There are several other ways of using Dstar even without a radio. There are some applications in terminal mode that you can use your cell phone in a Dstar mode. You have to be registered now, but in a Dstar mode, no radio involved whatsoever. This way, if you look, the internet is the yellow lines. So the internet's doing all the heavy lifting there. But it too can be steered. This guy can steer to talk to that repeater, that repeater, that repeater. He can link them all three together if he wants. Unlink who he doesn't want to listen to. It's very, very, very flexible. Also, this is called access point mode. We know it as hotspots. Okay? All it is you use your little walkie-talkie. Suppose you can't hit the repeater with your walkie-talkie. You're just a little too far out. Okay, say you live in, I don't know, just way up the road, Camden. Say you live in Camden, and you just can't hit the Sumter repeater, but you do have a hotspot. This hotspot is a little small device, about the size of Joe's Nest-tastic, maybe a little boxier. Does about 10 milliwatts, but that's enough to cover probably a couple of acres. I use my hotspot. I'll be down on the pond fishing, and I hear the Dstar transmissions out of my little tiny hotspot that's way up at the house. I hear it fine. So that's another method. But I just wanted to show you some of the things that Dstar can do. Not necessarily our repeater, but some of the things Dstar can do. So what makes Dstar different from FM? Well, one of the things is that it uses, instead of frequency modulation, it uses a method of modulation called Gaussian minimum shift key. instead of the traditional in FM mode frequency modulation, okay? Another thing, Dstar only needs 6.5 kilohertz, so it is specifically a quarter of the bandwidth that a normal FM signal occupies. It only needs a quarter of that, okay? It only needs a quarter of that because it's digital data. That's the reason why. As far as clarity goes, it is absolutely perfect. It is as clear as my voice is right now until you hit what's called the digital cliff. A comparison. Everyone has heard FM transmissions that when they start to get weak, they get this picket fencing, a little bit of noise, a little bit of static, a little bit more picket fencing, and all of a sudden, then they're gone. Not so with digital transmissions. Digital transmissions are absolutely perfect until they can't be. Until there's just simply no more signal available. Okay, so that's what's called the digital cliff. Okay, and it is not a downgrade like on FM. It is perfect, even weak signal, and then it falls. It's silent. Okay. Let's compare it to some of these other modes that we've got. Well, of course, Dstar is a public domain. It's in the public domain. It's a voice channel its data rate is about 3.6 kilobits per second. Okay, it is good. Like I said before, it's a Gaussian shift keying or whatever. It is good for data, messaging, location, imaging, and video. You can do all those things using Dstar. It only occupies 6.5 kilohertz as opposed to your normal FM stuff. And here's the beauty. It can be used on any band. It is not relegated to VHF and UHF. You can use Dstar on HF. One of the reasons is that number right there is because it takes up so little room on the spectrum. I mean, let's a voice channel is on, even on single sideband, is 2.7 kilohertz, right? I mean, so it's not occupying very much at all. With Yaesu, their thing called System Fusion, it's got a little bit higher voice data rate. It uses frequency shift keying, but look, it can do pretty much the same as Dstar, except, whoop, where's the video? Can't do video. It takes up twice. You see that? It takes up twice the width that Dstar occupies. So it's a little bit fatter, like me. Just a little bit fatter. It also is relegated to only VHF and UHF. Can only be used on those two bands. DMR, everybody's heard about that, especially Quincy. DMR is also in the public domain. Its voice data rate is about 2.5 or so kilobits per second, but it can't even do the imaging data. It can only do message and location, where some like GPS location. Okay. The beauty of DMR is that yes, each channel is 12.5 kilohertz, but you can have two independent channels on the same transmission. In other words, a DMR transmission can contain two completely separate and autonomous conversations going on. One cannot hear the other. And the beauty, that's because of the, it's called TDMA, or time domain multiple addressing, and it is time slot 1, time slot 2, time slot 1, time slot 2. So time slot 1 gets one conversation, time slot 2 gets the other conversation, and you can only listen to one time slot at a time. Your receiver can only hear that. Repeater, on the other hand, can broadcast both at the same time, but you can only listen to one. I'm not going to go into Kenwood's next gen, or next gen. I just kind of wanted to compare some of these numbers. One of the interesting things, again, Dstar's only taken up 3.6. DMR, due to time slotting, only takes up about 2.5 kilohertz. But look at your cell phones right here. There is how wide your cell phone voice channel is, 56 kilobits. So it's a big old wide thing. And anyway, let's, are there any questions so far? Let's move on. So what's a Dstar network look like? Well, you've got repeaters, and those repeaters in a Dstar repeater system consist of a 1.2 gigahertz module A, which we don't own, a UHF module B, which we do own, a VHF module C, which I own but is not deployed, and a 1.2 gigahertz data. Okay, there's two 1.2 gigahertz modules in a Dstar system. We have the B module only. We have a gateway that can be connected to reflectors. All these are brand new terms. I don't expect anybody to know what I'm talking about for another 10 minutes. And I'll get to every bit of that. But just know this is what we as a club own. We own that module right there and that gateway right there. Okay? This is what is called a Dstar stack. It consists of 4 repeaters. Again, the 1.2 gigahertz voice channel, the module A, the module B, which is the 440 or UHF, the module C, which is the VHF 144 2 meter, and down here is the digital data module D, what's called module D. There is no difference between that unit and that unit other than one checkbox in the software, period. That's the only difference between the two of them. And there is one very specific, I don't expect anybody to remember this, but I'm going to put it out anyway. If you have any combination and a designated digital repeater, the digital repeater is the one that must be connected directly to the gateway. You cannot daisy chain to the gateway. It has to be connected directly to the gateway, and that means that that is the master controller for all the rest of these repeaters. Okay? So as you can see, the data is just kind of daisy chained, but there's the big controller right there. All these have controllers in them. Every single one of them's got a controller in it. It's just dormant. This is the one that's doing all the traffic direction in and out. Okay? So, let's move on a little bit more. Again, I'm going to go back. Maybe this will become a little bit clearer. You can see that our repeater can talk to another repeater, can talk to them. This guy over here with a hotspot, our repeater can talk to him. But again, the internet is the one doing all the heavy lifting. The internet is the wires between. That's how you connect these guys together. Now, we have a Generation 2 Dstar repeater. We spent, we've got the latest and greatest version of Dstar. What that does, as opposed to the very first generation did not do FM at all. It was strictly, if you take a line and go to the right, it would do all that, but it had no FM. Ours, like I said, is a mixed mode repeater. Mixed mode. So we can do FM, and the repeater that Joe and I pulled out that day, right Joe? We pulled it out. That was a FM only repeater, and we replaced it with one single box right there. As a matter of fact, it's only half that box does FM. So nothing has changed. The frequency remained the same, the tone remained the same, the operation of the repeater remained the same. If you do not operate Dstar yet, want to operate that FM, you will not see a difference in the way it operates, period. Period. It is exactly the way it was. However, we now have this Dstar stuff, and it'll do that. Here's the way it works. The repeater will repeat whatever mode is presented to it. If you present it with an FM signal, it'll repeat FM. If you present it with a Dstar signal, it'll repeat Dstar. It will stay in that mode, whatever the last mode it keyed up on, for 5 seconds. After that, it resets and is ready for either or. Either or. It doesn't care. But it's ready to do it all over again. The reason being that we chose 5 seconds because it's going to take 3 seconds, if it's in Dstar mode, to shut everything down, to disconnect from, well, the rest of the planet. You know, from all this, if it's connected, it's got to disconnect from that, and we try and do that in a logical fashion. It takes 3 seconds, we're going to give it 5. Okay, just to make sure that if there's any glitches or retries or whatever on the internet, we give it a fighting chance to shut down in a logical fashion. Okay, and this is exactly, Joe is very familiar because Joe helped. This is it right here. This is what all our repeater looks like right there. That's it. It's pure and simple. If you notice, there's no knobs, no buttons, no switch. The only button on the thing is that one right there, just to turn it on or off. That's it. The rest of it, all on the keyboard, baby. So, again, just like as before, 444.150 with a PL tone of 123.0. And the call sign now is W4GL. I have the Morse ID as a /D, but when you're programming your Dstar radio, this is very important, and you'll understand this in another 5 minutes, why that B is so important. Also, there are 3 spaces between that L and that B. 3 spaces, very important for that. You'll understand in 5 more minutes. Pardon me, I'm going to apologize right here. I wanted to show a little bit more about our local repeater. I stupidly put 144 and a C right there. Please, in your mind, replace that with 440 and a B. Remember, the B is the UHF, C is the VHF, A is the 1.2 gig, and D is a 1.2 gig data. Okay? So anyway, as a local repeater, you can have a conversation between 2 radios, you know, just normal, through the repeater, old Dstar every day, just like you would FM, just exactly the same way. You can also, if we had, say, another repeater as part of that stack, you can also go in VHF and come out UHF, or vice versa. You can go either way. So it can be like a translator, or almost like a crossband repeater, okay? So all of your 144 users are happy and talking to all of your 440 users, okay? Through that repeater. Pretty slick stuff. You can make it as a translator using the internet. In other words, let's say that we're here on 440 here in Sumter, and we want to talk to our friends down in Charleston. They don't have a UHF repeater. They've got a VHF repeater down there. But we can directly connect our repeater to KR4CHS, which is the Charleston Dstar, through the gateway that's built into both of them, and using the internet. So those two can talk to each other with no problem at all. Very, very simple to do, very easy to do, and almost instantaneous. The whole process takes, I don't know, half second, something like that. If we have a friend in Sacramento, then we know that he only has a VHF radio, but his radio is a Dstar radio, we can direct our repeater on 440 to connect to his repeater on a specific port. So you have to kind of put yourself in the mind of a gateway now. I'm a computer, I'm a network, I'm a gateway. So I don't care about frequencies. UHF, VHF, that means nothing to me if I'm a computer. What matters though is port A, port B, port C, or port D. That's something I can understand if I'm a computer. We're ham radio guys, we talk in frequencies. Computers, they don't care anything about frequency. So, anyway, it's just as easy for us to connect to the guy, our buddy there who's on a field trip in Sacramento, but he only has a VHF radio. So, we can do that. He, by the way, can do the same thing. He can link and say, I want to connect to Sumter repeater. It's kind of a moot point because we only have one module here in Sumter. But if we had 2 or 3 modules, he could direct which module he wanted to connect to. Okay? All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about gate. Oh, by the way, is there any questions before we go any further? Anything else? Okay.
If the internet goes down, Dstar goes down, right?
No, that is not correct.
No?
That is not correct. If the internet, you'll find out what happens when the internet goes down. But Dstar does not go down. Okay. Well, what makes it special? Well, let's think of these gateways, and almost every Dstar repeater has a gateway. Let's think of them like, remember the old show Stargate, SG-1? Remember that? And they had this big Stargate, right? And depending on where the keystones were lined up and latched in and all that, would determine where they went. Same thing here. You enter the command, and that's you enter this gateway, and then the gateway, you tell the gateway where you want to pop out, where you want to exit. Okay? So also another little added benefit that I haven't mentioned is that if you know that a friend is on Dstar, it doesn't matter where he is on the planet, but if he's on Dstar, you can find out what node, repeater, call sign, and port that he is on. You can do a query, and it will find that person if he is logged on to anywhere in the world. He could be in Beijing, and logged on to a Dstar network, and you can find it just by simple commands on the front panel of your radio. Okay? Now, all these gateways, in order to do that, are all connected via the internet. Okay? So some hams think that that's kind of cheating. Mr. Dunlap comes to mind immediately. But there are plenty of other people like me it's another way of connecting. It could have been microwave, it could have been a hardwire, it could have been Morse code, albeit that would be terribly slow, but it's just another path, another way to get from here to there. Okay? When you connect these stargates or these gateways together, you can exchange your port signals or port assignments. It's either going to be A, B, C, or in the case of simplex through the repeater, it's just going to be RF. Just going to be RF. I'll get to that in just a little bit of a second. The rest of this is useless. But as I said before, these Dstar repeaters are everywhere. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them worldwide. They are everywhere. There are so many that going through the list, you'll never get to the bottom of the list because you'll find something, oh, that looks good, and you'll end up connecting to that one to see what's going on way before you get to the bottom of the list. I mean, there are hundreds of these things. They're everywhere. So to join a reflector. Now a reflector is something like a room, or say you walk in to a hotel there's a conference room here, and a conference room there, and a conference room there, and a conference room there. Same hotel, different meetings going on. You know, the Sports Car Club of America is in the first one, the ham radio group's in the second one, and the quilting ladies are in the third one, and all legitimate. They're all in the same hotel, or they're all on the same repeater. It's just which room you want to go into, which meeting you want to attend. So you tell the you direct your repeater to connect to a reflector, and these reflectors, for each reflector, let's just pick reflector 001, and it will go from A to Z. So there are like 26 reflectors, sub-reflectors, sub-rooms, conference rooms, if you will. So, and you can direct it to go to any of these that are that exist, as long as they're registered with the gateway, you know, with the main gateway server. You can get there. This is the one I really like, the multi-mode reflectors. They are just like Dstar reflectors. However, when I say, here's the thing right here, multi-mode. Suppose your friend doesn't have a Dstar radio. You want to talk to him. He's out in Tacoma. You want to talk to him. He's got a Yaesu radio and a hotspot. Guess what? He can take his Yaesu radio, connect it to his hotspot. His hotspot connects to a multi-mode reflector, and once he gets in with System Fusion, you can talk to him on Dstar, because everything, here's how it works. Everything gets decoded down to the audio level, and then gets redistributed in the appropriate protocol, be it Dstar, Yaesu System Fusion, DMR, NextGen, M17, whatever. Even some all-star stuff that's FM. Okay? So no matter how you get in to one of these XRF or XLS multi-mode reflectors, once you're in, everybody who's connected there hears you regardless of the mode that they came in on. It's all the same. Okay? That's a beautiful thing. So now that we've talked about all these capabilities that Dstar can do, obviously there's got to be a way to do LUIE set. L-O-U-I-E. I'll call it the LUIE. L is a command to link. It's going to link it's going to command your repeater to link to something else. The O in the old days, and it's still valid, but in the old days, rather than connect to a reflector, the O would link you to a reflector that was one of the multi-mode reflectors, XRX or XLX reflectors. So that was the O. You can forget about the O. The U command, a simple command to unlink. If you've linked and you're done talking on that reflector, unlink it. You just issue the U command, and the whole network will disconnect itself, and you're back to normal, and you can turn the radio off and go, drink a beer. So let's say you just turned your radio on, and you don't know the status of what is the repeater connected. I don't know whether my repeater is connected to anything, disconnected, or what. Simply issue an I command, and the repeater will report back in voice its status, either connected or unconnected. If it's not connected, it'll say connected to the gateway, which is the main server. If it's connected to a reflector, be it REF or an XLX, it will tell you connected to reflector XLX, XRF 517 alpha. It'll tell you what it's connected to. Another thing, we as amateurs always pay attention to the quality of our transmitted signal. In the past, it's always been a question mark. How do I sound? How does my radio sound? How's this new microphone sound? What do I sound like? And so you have to ask a buddy to evaluate. Well, that's clearly subjective. It is certainly subjective. I mean, he knows what you sound like, so he's going to try and make you feel good sometimes. He might make you feel bad sometimes. Whatever. This eliminates every bit of you having to ask your buddy for a subjective evaluation of your signal. The echo command, it will allow you to issue the command. You can make a short 10, 15 second transmission, test, echo test, what do I sound like? I sound pretty good, I hope, you know, and then unkey, and guess what happens? It comes right back to you. Right, well, actually it comes out of the repeater, so anybody listening to the repeater will hear that. But more importantly, you'll hear that. You'll hear what you sound like on your own radio, okay? So that, very, very helpful. If you have a higher end radio that you have to set mic gain or transmit equalization or something like that. It's a very, very, very useful tool. Obviously, again, if we're going to command this thing to link and unlink and go here and there, we need to have a destination, we need to define the path, and we need to tell it what we want to do. Obviously, every Dstar transmission contains your call sign. Every time you press the push to talk, your call sign goes out. Okay? So well, I'll get into that in a minute, but with every transmission, your call sign is embedded as part of the underlying data part of that. Remember, there's voice and data that are being transmitted both at the same time on the same bit stream. So, the your call is actually the target. That's where you want to go. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. You have to think like a Japanese radio engineering programmer, okay? Your call, you'd think, hey, that'd be KK4MA. No. My call is KK4MA. Your call, meaning you're calling, is how I always, it's not your call, it's your calling. They just forgot the ing. Anyway, it's usually, for a general call, it's just CQ. Now, that doesn't mean that voice-wise you can't answer a guy, you know, K7SSB, you can, this is KK4MA, and it'll show your call sign on his screen and vice versa. So, you know, you can call him using voice, using his call sign. But you have to know a little bit about the path. So, in the case, obviously, you're going to do this through your local repeater, so that's going to be in the RPT1 field. Now, we're kind of getting into the programming of the radio, but the R1 or RPT1 field will have W4GL space B. That's what it's going to be forever and ever and ever until we either add more modules or change the call sign of the club. One of the two. The target, on the other hand, is variable. So it can be any repeater you want in the case and that's to go to a specific repeater. If you wanted to operate into a reflector and let the internet take over, then that would be W4GL space G for gateway. I want my repeater to connect to the gateway. And from there, once it's connected to the gateway, it'll pass the link command to what reflector or talk group or whatever you want it to go to. Okay? It'll all become a little clearer now. So, in the old days, the Gen 1 Dstar servers were made for call sign routing. It was long and tedious and cumbersome, and you basically had to know who you wanted to talk to. It was very hard to do. The network would find them, but it was tedious and painful. You could link together a couple of repeaters the old way, just like you can now, but And then the reflectors, they were relegated to only the REFs, which were on the ICOM G3, the G3 server that ICOM pretty much sanctions or pays for or whatever. We've gone one better. Let me get to this. Been talking an awful lot about repeaters. First off, this is very important if you're going to operate Dstar. Dstar is inherently a duplex mode. Remember before, the first thing I showed you was you could talk radio to radio direct using Dstar. I said that, right? But it'll work on simplex, but because it is inherently a duplex mode and a repeater-based mode, you have to set your radio up as duplex. In other words, you have to transmit on a frequency and receive on the same frequency, but it has to be duplex. So you set either, it doesn't matter whether it's upshift or downshift, but the shift for simplex is going to be 0 hertz. No 600 kilohertz for 144, no 5 megahertz for UHF. None of that. 0. That's for simplex, radio to radio. Okay? So I just wanted to make sure. So if two of you guys get together and don't want to operate through the repeater, but want to operate, say, at AmFest, something like that. You calling each other. You guys are on opposite ends of the flea market or whatever out there. So you can talk back and forth. It's just when you program your radio, make sure that it is programmed as a repeater. Doesn't matter whether it's up or down shift, but the offset is 0. There's no change in frequency. It's more of a radio thing than anything else. But just wanted to make that mention. This is, and I have copies of this sheet. This is the go-to sheet right here. This will tell you everything about programming that you need to know, how to set up your radio based on what you want to do. If you want to have a simplex call, it'll tell you I've got to have your call in there, or CQ. Okay. If you want to just make a local call on a local repeater, notice I said I'm using AK6MB as an example here, but it could be W4GL, and all these spaces in the very last or 8th character is a B. So W4GL and B, you can leave that one blank because you're not steering it anywhere. You're just staying on the same repeater. If you want to go crossband, then if we had another mode, I'm not going to go into that, but if we had another mode, you could go I can look at this command right here and I say, I'm going to go in on port B, which is UHF, and I'm going to come out on port A, which is VHF. Or excuse me, 1.2 gig. So if we had those other modules, you can do like that. You can cross connect or cross band repeat. Okay, the rest of the commands, there's that Louis again. The rest of the commands are pretty much self-explanatory. If this is what you want to do, this is how you need to set up your line in your programming, okay, of your radio. And most important, remember, the your call is 8 characters. Well, actually, all of the columns, 8 characters. So no matter what, you have to have the call sign, but it's got to be 8 characters long. So you can't skimp on that. Even these simple commands like the unlink, the information, and the echo test, they precede with 7 spaces. If you see those little carrots there. So the command is 8 characters long, no matter what. So how do I get on the air with Dstar? Well, first off, you have to go through a little registration process. All they're going to do is ask you for your call sign. They're going to ask you for an email to send back your acknowledgement that you're in the system. Why do they do that? Remember me telling you about you could find anybody on the planet, if they're logged in, you can find them by doing a query on your local repeater. That if they're not registered, the server never knows. It doesn't know who this person is. You can't even get on unless you're registered. In other words, you have to have a key to get in, and this is the key. The registration is your key. Now, when you register, it's a very simple process. I think the only thing you have to do is just give your call sign and an email address so they can get back to you. It takes about an hour for them to get back to you. And once you're in, you're in. The rest of the world knows that you exist as a Dstar user. It doesn't care about where you are, where you're coming from. It doesn't care any of that. It just wants to get you, so it knows a path to get to you or from you whenever you key up, no matter where that might be. Setting up your radio, that's probably going to be the hardest part right there. I would offer to help, but so many different radios have so many different command lines. I would refer you to YouTube University. That YouTube will guide you through. However, I do want everyone here to take a copy, and I've got some in this folder. I want you to take this hard copy home with you, because this chart and table right here will tell you everything you need to know when you're programming your radio. Okay? And last but not least, do it. Don't be scared. Do it. Everybody was new at some point. So this is what the registration server looks like. And I think, you just put in your call sign and a return email address so that they can tell you, yeah, you're in. That's it. And then after that, it's a one-time thing, free of charge, doesn't cost a penny. It's just a matter of getting there. So if you just Google search, Dstar registration or something like that, that's all you need to do. And kerchunk away after that. Everybody know what kerchunk is, right? You just, yeah, Phil's old time. I know he knows what it is. So in order for the repeater to know what you want to do, you have to kerchunk it. You have to issue a command with a single PGT. And say, hey, I want to link, or hey, I want to unlink, or hey, I want to do an echo test. You got to kerchunk it and release it. Give it about a second, and then go to your talk channel, which is going to be another memory. You just click to the next memory, is usually the talk channel, and you just start talking away, because that one's sending out your call sign, the CQ, all that stuff like that. It can also, you can embed in the software, you can embed in the message your name. There's a little four-character deal that can be after that. Some people put, if they have a four-character, like Phil, P-H-I-L, it'd be /Phil or /Mike. In my case, I do I put in like a 7100, because I have an ICOM 7100 radio that I use, or 9700, ICOM 9700 radio. Anyway, it's up to you. There is a text message that you can put in there, and it can be up to 20 characters long. Mine says Mike in Manning, South Carolina. That's what mine says. So whenever I key up and I'm talking on any of these reflectors, as a matter of fact, to the repeater, it shows on the other radio screen, Mike in Manning, South Carolina, and it shows my call sign. So there's a little bit of identification there. I got real fancy with some of these later model radios that had the GPS built in, like the ICOM 7100. I put my GPS, I let my GPS that's embedded in the radio, it goes out also. So it's kind of like the old APRS stuff. You can actually track somebody, but it only works when the guy keys up. It's not an automatic reporting thing like APRS is, right? So it only goes out when you transmit. And again, that, like I said before, when you chunk, that's what sends the commands to link, to unlink, to get your info with the I or get the echo test with the E. Okay? These are some of the things that you can expect to see on your screen. W6CJS is /AMB, there's that 4 characters, so you can expect to see that. And it also will give a little bit of a message down there. This guy says Camarillo, California. Big deal. I guess you guys know that I plagiarized this one from AA6AA or whatever. But with permission, of course, I emailed him. He said, yeah, use it. So this is what the GPS data on your screen will look like when I transmit. So there'll be a latitude and longitude fill in with much more than zeros. It'll tell how far away I am. It'll tell what direction I am. And I think there is a second page that will tell how fast I'm going. I think. I'm not positive about that. But also it'll tell where I am, or at least what my text message says. So, most of your radios have the digital voice repeater list built right into them. Oops. Most of your new radios do that. This is how easy it is. Unbelievable. If you spend the time and program in your latitude and longitude, you can go repeater, nearest repeater, and it will show based on where you are and based on the latitude and longitude data in the list where your closest repeaters are. By closest to furthest away. It'll just start listing them on the screen. And you simply touch the one you want to go through. It's that easy. It's unbelievably easy. So the hardest part is getting on Google Maps and figuring out where you are. Or buying a radio that has GPS built right into it. You know, you can do it that way too. But it's a very, very cool feature. As a matter of fact, it not only works for Dstar repeaters, but you can fill in, it's like an Excel spreadsheet. You can fill in your local FM repeaters with the same data, with that latitude and longitude data, and it'll go right to them. It'll even ask you, do you want FM only, do you want digital voice only, or do you want both? And you just pick which one you want to see. So, like I said, it even works for FM repeaters. Don't expect ICOM to provide the FM repeaters in the list. That's something that you have to backfill yourself, but it might be fun to just give it a little bit of a try. Okay? Let's see. As far as memory channels go, what I like to do is make a single memory channel that says Sumter repeater, Sumter repeater's gateway, link, and a reflector that I want to. So I pick that memory channel, chunk it, and then once it's connected, I click the knob one more time, and that's talk. I just say Sumter repeater, gateway, use repeater. That's it. I just one memory channel issues the command, the next memory channel lets you talk. And it's really that easy. Let's see. Yep. Usually 3 after that. I've got a link, an unlink, and a use repeater. So I actually put the use repeater right there. So in say memory channel 1, memory channel 2, and memory channel 3, and memory channel 2. That's how I did it. So, but it's up to you. I mean, it's your radio. Again, the memory can be a combination of FM or DV, digital voice, Dstar repeaters. there, what I was talking about, is that it can be searched by GPS location. That's that near repeater, or nearest to where you are right now. Also, some other radios like the Flex and some Kenwood radios can do Dstar. I don't know anything about those radios or how to set them up. I've heard them on the air. I cannot tell that they're any different than a Dstar radio. They sure sound the same to me, and I see the exact same data that I would on a known Dstar radio user on my screen at least. So just be aware that there are several other manufacturers, but ICOM is in fact the big dog when it comes to Dstar. Again, with DV voice or digital voice mode, which is Dstar voice, the voice and some low-speed data at about 1200 baud are set at the same time. They're all contained, pardon me, within the same bit stream. You can send very short text messages, 20 characters max. You can share GPS coordinates if you have the digital position reporting system box checked. It will do that for you. And the incoming call signs will be displayed on your screen. So whoever you're talking to, if you forget his call sign, you just glance at the screen, there it is right there. So if you're like me, I forget who I'm talking to sometimes, if they're brand new, first time contact. So for those of you who do not have Dstar radios, you're not locked out. There are plenty of ways to use. You can get hotspots. Everybody's heard of these hotspots. What they are is little tiny internet repeaters. They're little internet interfaces. So they listen to your Dstar radio or System Fusion or DMR or whatever, and they go out on the internet. So, and these hotspots are connected to whatever reflector you decide that you want to be a part of. So that's one of the things. Some of the big names, OpenSpot, M1KE, these MMDVMs are low cost, a little bit cumbersome to set up, but they work great. Sometimes known as jumbo spots, Pi Stars. They're Raspberry Pi based. They're just little guys, little teeny guys. Some of your higher end radios, some of the other ways to get in, you can do a direct connect from your cell phone if you've got the right app and you're all programmed correctly. Again, got to be registered before you try this. You got to go through that registration process. But once you do that, then you can use your cell phone, connect to a reflector directly, because once it's on the internet, it doesn't care how it got on the internet. It doesn't care. It just needs to know where to go. So, so you're good there. There are a bunch of ICOM radios here that do support either a terminal mode or a hybrid mode. And that basically is connecting that radio either directly or via software to the internet. I use it very often with my ICOM 9700. I use an outboard program called Doozy. Very, very simple to operate. I put the radio in terminal mode. I bring up Doozy. I tell Doozy what reflector to go to, and from then on, I talk on the radio. The radio, everyone knows, green light for receive, red light for transmit. In terminal mode, that red light goes amber. It's amber. There's no RF going in and out of the radio at all. Yet it's connected, you know, to a regular reflector as if I were going through the repeater. So it's kind of a cool mode. Let's see. I don't think I need to go through all this. This is almost level 2 stuff here. But one thing, like I mentioned Doozy, there it is right there. It's written by PA7 LIM, some ham over in, where's PA7 land? Netherlands, I think it is. And there's another program that I have not used, but I heard somebody just on the way here was using Blue DB. So there's software out there that can emulate Dstar, which it's all free, so it wouldn't cost you a penny, you know, and you don't necessarily have to have a radio either. You could use your computer if you've got, let's say you've got a USB headset and boom mic, something like that. You can operate, use your computer as a radio using some of this software, okay, in what's called terminal mode. The beauty of terminal mode, and I might ask, is unlike with radio, even walkie-talkie to hotspot, you know, 10 feet away, you can still have dropouts. You can have radio, RF dropouts, driving down the road, talking to a repeater, it can still drop out due to obstructions or whatever. You never have that with terminal mode. It is a rock solid, it is as good a connection as your internet connection is. So it's rock solid. And again, no RF. You don't even have to have an antenna connected to the radio to use that. Back to the get on the air. First thing, register your call sign. Get it registered. Then spend some quality time with your radio and programming it. Also, a little bit of etiquette. Californians are terrible about this. They are just terrible. But we on the East Coast, we're nice and etiquette. I can't say the word, but anyway, always listen before you link. It wouldn't hurt to issue a I command to see what the status of the repeater is. Is it linked or is it not linked? If it's not, some people actually make a transmission and say, is it okay? I'd kind of like to hook up to 30 Charlie. And hearing nothing, give them a few seconds to reply. If somebody's got an objection, they'll tell you. If not, they're along for the ride too. So you go ahead and connect. When you're done, disconnect. Or here's something else that I programmed our repeater to do. If there is 30 minutes of no activity, in other words, if that repeater doesn't key up for 30 minutes, it will automatically disconnect and sit there. It's wide open, ready for anything. So I thought that would be a good thing because especially new users may be having such a good time talking on the Dstar repeater they forget to unlink it when they're done with their queue. So you know, I just thought, you know, if nothing's happening in 30 minutes, it's probably a safe bet nothing's going on, you know. So anyway, 30-minute timer on that. But that's 30 minutes after the last PTT had heard. So there's that list again. I don't know why it's in there twice. It shouldn't be, but I really can't stress enough how I want you folks to take a look at this list and use it as your programming Bible. Now, let's talk a little bit about these reflectors. I'm just going to give you 3 of them about what goes on a reflector. Like I said, they're like meeting rooms. You know, you might have the sports car club in one, the ham radio in another, and the ladies quilt club in another. So they're all reflector 001, meaning the same hotel, but different conference rooms. A, B, C, D, and so on. Okay? So reflector 01 Charlie. Now that is a worldwide reflector. You can talk to anybody in the world, and you can find anybody in the world without even having to look for them. It's international. You never know what language they might be speaking, but remember, English is the de facto standard over the air, but not necessarily if you're talking. If a Swahili is talking to another Swahili on amateur radio, they don't have to use English. They can use Swahili, and you may hear that. You may hear that. Also, I want to caution you, it is very busy. 01 Charlie is extremely busy. It's probably active right now. What that means is if you go in on a repeater, the repeater may be up and transmitting so often that you don't get an opportunity to unlink it. You may not be able to get in to shut it down. That's kind of the problem. So I'm not saying don't use O1 Charlie. Just be aware that this might happen. You may not be able to unlink when you want to. You may have to wait a spell, depending on the other traffic out there on our green earth. Okay? Just don't want to discourage you, just wanted to make you aware. The next one is 30 Charlie. There are hundreds of reflectors, hundreds. I'm just picking a few just to talk about. Reflector 30 Charlie, now we've narrowed the scope a little bit. It's more for North America, Americans, Canadians, because half the hams in the world are Americans. The other half want to talk to you. So, but here's the good part, is that although 30 Charlie can get real busy, and there are several nits that go on 30 Charlie, but although it can be busy, and there can be Europeans or people from all over the world talking to others, but at least they speak English. You know, that's pretty much it, pretty good. So they'll be speaking English, and it's not as busy as O1, so you'll be able to shut it down or unlink some repeater from that reflector and let them just carry on. They continue on, and you're none the wiser because you're unlinked, disconnected. Here comes the good stuff, guys. I want to talk about my baby, the Radio SC reflector. Myself, KF5CJG, M4BAE, and WW4HG took on a project, and I had to do it from remote. But they asked me to help them with establishment of the Radio SC reflector. It is awesome. It's taken 2 years to build it, but we got it done, and it works great. It is, if you guys remember the XRF and XLF, it is a multimodal reflector. It is one of the few that actually works. You can come in on M17, go out on Dstar. You can come in All-Star. You can go out on System Fusion. It's all protocols all in one box, and it gets distributed correctly, and it does it fast. So it's not like there's a lot of latency involved. We use the QuadNet server in Atlanta, so we don't have a whole lot of distance to go to get to the server. There's a lot of folks, I answer an awful lot of emails because a lot of guys nationwide realize how successful we've been. Now again, it took 2 years to build this thing, and well, God love those other guys. Thank goodness Mike lives in Mount Pleasant. He could just drive 10 minutes and be at the repeater site. But anyway, it will accept and rebroadcast any mode that, oops, I'm sorry, pardon me. Any mode that comes in, it will rebroadcast all modes going out. So there you go. It's impervious. So you may see, you can connect using Dstar. It goes by several names. XRF 517, that's a sure bet. DCS 517 is a different path, same server, same reflector, just a different path it takes. And reflector 17 alpha, 517 alpha. If you're on DMR, Quincy, pay attention. If you're on DMR, talk group 517. QuadNet is, if you go through the TGIF network, is talk group 517. You go through QuadNet, again, talk group 517, and XLX 517 if you're going to use What's that other server? Brandmeister, is it?
Mhm.
Yep,
Yep,
yep, if you use Brandmeister. So, I'm not much of a DMR guy. Yaesu System Fusion, for you guys that have Yaesu radios, here's how you get to the radio SC reflector. Okay? You get there using YSF 51700. We try to make this as easy as possible. The 310, YCS 310, you have to use a talk group ID of 81. You have to. M17, we have that. However, guys, there's only 2 or 3 people. M17 was this new, brand new whiz-bang, sparkly, shining flash in the pan, and it fizzled out. It just, there's only one company that supported, and it was a cluster. Their first production radio didn't work. They released it, didn't work. There's been firmware after firmware after firmware upgrade to that radio, and it still is not very good. So I would, at this point in time, I'm officially discouraging anybody from getting an M17 capable radio, okay? Now, I wish Mike Craven were here because he could talk all day long about All-Star. However, Mike Craven happens to be one of the major users of our repeater, and he goes in on his All-Star node, and when that repeater is connected to the radio SC, we hear him. So, there you go. Also, for those of you who are familiar with EchoLink, which is a very simple and free program, there are 2 nodes that are directly connected. That's Nick's node, KF5CJG, so you just enter the node number, it'll connect to 517 M4AGK. I don't know that fellow, but anyway, it may not even be a fellow, for all I know, but there's his node number. Anyway, those are all paths to get into the radio SC reflector. It's a great reflector. There's several nets during the week. They're very relaxed. I had one this evening on the drive up here. I checked in, and probably 20 check-ins, mostly Charleston area, Beaufort, Hilton Head, Bluffton, down that way, you know, mostly, but Charleston area. Now that we're online and hopefully we get more activity, I would like to see us connect to the 517 reflector during their net times and join in. They'd love to have us. They've been waiting for a couple of years to get us, and we're finally at a point where we can be got. So, if you're driving around in South Carolina, I mentioned earlier KR4CHS, which is in Allendale. That's where the 2,000-foot television towers that support the Charleston area, it's on one of those 2. As a matter of fact, it's on the South Carolina ETV tower, and I don't know the height, but I want to say it's probably at the 1,800 foot level. So it's got a hell of a footprint, guys. Its frequency, of course, I think maybe earlier in the presentation I mentioned that Charleston was on VHF. There they are, right there. So that would be module A. So not really important when you're connecting to a reflector, but if you want to do a direct connect to that repeater, you'd have to know A.
That'd be module C.
What's that?
That'd be module C for 2 years, you said.
Yeah, that's a receiver frequency. So, you know, standard shift. Theirs is, by the way, is a Gen 1 repeater. Therefore, it does not do FM. It is Dstar only. So we have a Gen 2. We're all set. Which, by the way, that as a sidebar, that took quite a bit of time because the programmers who wrote the gateway software had never seen a repeater like we have. We were basically one of the very first ones that they ever worked on. So they had a bulletproof, tried and true model and software for the Gen 1 stuff, and here comes Mike. Okay, guys, it almost works. It almost works. So the getting the almost to perfectly working took quite a bit, and the guy who wrote the software out in Arizona became Well, he just said, well, I can't live with this, I gotta have this. So, I mentioned that there were some nets on there. Oh, sorry, my bad. Digital dog net and the salty dog net are on there. So they're a bunch of good guys, but they're, again, Hilton Head, Beaufort, Bluffton, Charleston, down that way. Let's see, there is down in Beaufort, there is the 145, 120, that ain't right. That ain't 145, it's 147. How did I make that mistake? Anyway, I did, sorry about that. Down Beaufort, there is that 442, 675 repeater that you can get in. You keep going here. And here in Summer, we don't constantly link, obviously. I did not think that was a good idea. I didn't want to use a shared club asset and lock it into a single reflector. So I left it up to you guys to connect and disconnect to whomever you like. So the guys on 517 would love to have us. They encourage us to connect with them. So there you go. Are there any questions? So far, here's some troubleshooting that goes on. So I can't hear anybody. I got my radio, I think my radio's all set up. I can't hear anybody. You need to make sure that the R1 and R2, RPT1 and 2, has 8 characters. That's the key. Again, I want to give everybody a sheet, and that's the key to the whole thing. Sometimes they're saying I sound like R2D2 coming through here. What's going on? Well, it's because you're right on the coverage edge. Remember I mentioned about the digital cliff. You don't get this slow degradation in signal quality with a little static and a little picket fencing. You don't get that on a digital mode. It's either there or it's not. What's happening with this, a high bit error rate, is you're there and you're not. You're there and you're not. You're there and you're not. You're there. So you're teetering on and off of this cliff. And that's what's causing it. It's a very high data rate. Some of the software is smart enough to interpret what you're going to say. So it tries to backfill syllables as best it can. But if the error rate is too high, it just gives up. It can't. And it shuts off. So I tried to connect to the site, and the repeater says the remote site's unavailable. I'm trying to connect to all these different repeaters. Remote sites unavailable. What's wrong? Something has happened to the internet. Now, I'm going to tell you what we got for internet. Anybody care? We are using a Starlink mini dish. It is a very, very low data package on this thing. So it's working, but I wouldn't say, I wouldn't want to try and watch a video. It's a pretty low, it's good for Dstar and it's good for maybe shooting an email, but you're not going to watch a video at that data rate. So that's what's going on there. We've had an interruption in the, and of course with Starlink, you know, you're at the mercy of whatever satellite chain, you know, or whatever is flying over at the time. So so far it's good. Occasionally I will hear, and this happens when there's a lull in traffic. I'll hear the repeater disconnect, then reconnect. The whole process takes about 2 seconds. It'll disconnect and reconnect. And I think I've never heard it when there's active traffic on the repeater. In other words, when there's traffic in and out on the internet, active live conversations going on, I've never heard it disconnect. It's during that calm time when nobody's saying anything, you're connected to a reflector but there's no audio traffic, it'll disconnect and reconnect. And I think that's a setting actually in the server, not anything to do with us. It's a timeout. Well, I think with the server polls, does like a heartbeat check, and I think it fails the heartbeat check. I think that's what's going on, and it's because of that low data rate. The Charleston guys had the same problem. They went to a more expensive subscription for Starlink. Problem went away. They didn't change anything except the subscription, and the problem went away. Do I need to register? Shit. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, they did good. Got 3,500 slides here. There, oh man, I did it again. There we go.
Quit while you're ahead.
Yeah, quit while I'm putting the damn thing down. Anyway, do I need to register? Well, if you want to operate, a reflector or through a gateway or calling somebody, any gateway operations, it has to know that you're real. It has to know your call sign. So you have to register if you want. If you just want to talk Dstar through the local repeater to another Dstar user, that's fine. You don't have to register. You're not using a gateway. You're using a repeater only. So everything's fine. Now, can I use Dstar without the repeater? So if you don't do that, yeah, the answer is yes. You can always do simplex or direct between two radios. You can use a hotspot, and if you got a real fancy radio, you can do terminal mode. Charlie, I meant to mention, I didn't put it in there, but your 9100 will do this also.
Yes,
Yes, it will. So,
that's good to know.
yep.
I have no clue how to do it, but
Well,
that's good to know.
but anyway, I think that's the end of the presentation. Okay, any questions that anyone might have?